Good morning. Welcome to day 20 of our challenge. Happy Wednesday, everybody. This is one of my favorite weeks of the challenge. We're talking about how our meditation practice gives us some tools for navigating our life a little bit better. We're going to talk about a tough issue today. We're going to talk about forgiveness. About a year ago, I lost a 22-year friendship. I was heartbroken. I was angry. I really was grieving the loss of this, what was my longest standing friendship. I was also surprised at how long it took me to work through the emotions related to this falling out. But it did give me some opportunity to work with these tools that we talk about here in New Leaf for getting to forgiveness. Forgiveness is not about the other person, right? Typically, when somebody hurts us, they have transferred their pain from themselves to us, and we're left carrying it around. Forgiveness lets us put this heavy load down and move forward unencumbered. So I want to focus on 4 tools that have helped me navigate forgiveness. Appropriate boundaries, putting this in perspective, looking at our part, and then the role of loving kindness and kind of cementing and finishing our healing. So appropriate boundaries. Just because we forgive somebody and we're trying to move on does not mean we need to welcome them into our life. There are plenty of examples, and I'm sure they easily come to mind. An abusive, emotionally or physically abusive spouse, a toxic family member that takes a lot from our life, a coworker or an employee who stole, right? We can forgive these people and move on, but we can also maintain appropriate boundaries, and we don't have to then let this person back into our life. An interesting note about appropriate boundaries, a dear friend of mine pointed this out a long time ago. Typically, the people that we have to set boundaries with are the very first to encroach upon and push those boundaries. So it's okay to recognize that there's going to be some growing and learning how to maintain those. Second tool here is putting this in perspective. And part of putting this in perspective is recognizing their humanity. Right? Everybody's a person trying to do their best, hopefully. Most of us are anyway. And hurt people tend to hurt other people, right? I truly believe that at our core, we're loving and kind people. But we get bumped up and bruised and scraped up along the way of life. And it's very easy to have a hardened shell and get disconnected from this kindness that I think is at the center of all of us. So one of the things that I try to do when I'm hurt or angry with somebody is recognize their humanity. I've made mistakes. I've hurt people. I've had to ask for forgiveness and make amends for my mistakes. It is possible that this other person is deserving of this too. I also try to engage so recognizing this humanity is part of putting this in perspective. I had a wonderful opportunity in 2011. I became a hospice volunteer, and I was able to engage with this on and off for most of the last decade. And one of the many things that I got out of this experience was it put everything in the rest of my life in perspective. I would have a tough and challenging day at work, and then I would go and sit with somebody who was processing what it meant to be in the final chapter of their life. And it was very hard to get upset because Carol had sent a rude email, right? This big sort of scope and expanse of life, seeing the spectrum, full spectrum of humanity, really does put a lot of hurtful experiences in perspective. Not all. Some hurt is deeply wounding and will be, can't be put into a small perspective and shrunk, and isn't appropriate for that. I like to, when I'm recognizing somebody's humanity, trying to put myself in their feet, trying to place this in perspective. I had heard a guided meditation many years ago that was about starting in that interaction and imagining ourselves moving all the way out. We could start seeing our neighbors, the town or city we live in, the whole country, imagining the full spectrum of births and deaths and everything in between that happens there. And does that help us put this in perspective? Third, and sometimes this is the most challenging, I try to look at my part in these instances. And, I'll say that this is hardest for some of my friends or meditation students that I've worked with who've had trauma as children, whether it was neglect or abuse or any of the myriad of ways that a young person can be hurt by an adult or other children. We tend to carry those wounds into the rest of our life. So when I say we look at our part, and, I want to start with this probably most sensitive of a vulnerable child. In this case, our part might be that we haven't engaged responsibly in an adult to find healing. Have we worked with a therapist? Have we sought spiritual counsel? Are we doing the inner work that will allow us to heal and find wholeness after this traumatic experience? In more everyday situations where we're striving for forgiveness, there's always some kind of interesting nuance that we can grab onto, that we can look at. And remember, this is not about them. We're just looking at our part. It's very easy to start to turn it back around and go to blame. But this third section, this looking at our part, is really for us. So I have sometimes a challenging relationship with my father. And what's at the root of that? A lot of it's expectations. I want my father to be something that he couldn't possibly be. I think all of us go through this in life at some point. We realize our parents are human beings too, and maybe they're doing the best they can. So when I look at sometimes getting frustrated with my father, it's because I have an expectation that he should be some superhuman up on a pedestal. And maybe he's not capable of being anything other than just a human. And looking at my part, seeing what gets disrupted, struggles at work, that causes a lot of anxiety for many of us. What's my part here? Well, work is our financial security, and maybe I haven't done enough to work myself out of debt or save money, so I'd be a little bit insulated from a lost job, right? So there's always something that we can do to look for a space about what's our part, where can we do some work to move on, whether it's healing or recognizing that we have some triggers that are going to make this difficult. Last, I want to talk about loving kindness meditation. And I really do, I think this is the last step. We have to do some heavy lifting. This can take, forgiveness can take weeks, or it can take months, and in some cases it can take years. A loving kindness meditation, and I'll drop a link to a guided loving kindness meditation in the comments here, or you can find it in the email for this challenge. In loving kindness meditation, we start focusing on somebody it's easy to love. We extend some of these wishes of well-being to somebody who's neutral. And then last, we focus on extending these words to somebody that we struggle with. And my experience with this has been, it has been a really powerful tool for transforming the anger or hurt I have towards somebody into something a little bit more manageable. So going back to the example of my friend of 22 years, I was terrified that I was going to run into him in the grocery store. Every time I saw a picture or a Facebook memory would pop up of us, on a trip or something, and I would have a flash of emotions anywhere from anger to grief. And I had to develop a little bit of a mantra that was sort of like a mini version of a loving kindness meditation of, I forgive you, I wish you well, but I'm not going to have you as a part of my life anymore, right? And that was my little bit of a mantra. And I got slowly into, when I realized I had the fear of running into him, what if my phone rang one day and it was him and I didn't want to talk to him, I had this mantra I could go to that helped me find some peace as it related to that relationship. So, big topic. As always, we're in the discussion group. We're here to talk about this. If you want to process some of this, remember I'm here as a resource. You can email me at Anthony@NewLeafMeditation, or reach out any of the other ways we're connected. I'm happy to delve into this further with you. We also have the discussion group. There's usually a good conversation around this topic. You can join us there. Let's stick with our tradition of meditating for 3 minutes together. So if you haven't gotten your sitting in today, we can do it as a group. Okay. Happy Wednesday, friends. Talk to you soon.